Donald Trump loses his federal appeal to presidential immunity in the January 6th case. So that is just breaking a couple hours ago. So we're going to start with that. We'll talk about what that means, what happens next with this, and what the ruling actually means going forward in regular society. In other news, U.S. strikes in Iraq and Syria. Biden sends Iran a signal, but I don't think it's the right signal. So we'll talk about what's happening with that, what it means, why I think this was the poorest idea in the world, and whether or not we're going to actually go to war. The border bill has been released, and yes, I have read it cover to cover. It is as bad as the commentators are saying. It absolutely is. But we'll go over some of what they are talking about that's in it, some of what they're talking about that, or what they're not talking about rather, that's in it, and what this means going forward for the country. And Alvin Bragg is forced to address the fact that several NYPD officers were assaulted in Times Square by illegal immigrants, and yet they weren't deported right away, and they were offered release with very low bail. So we'll be going over some of that. There's going to be a lot more tonight. Man, there is a lot of stuff on here tonight. We'll get to as much as we can. We are probably going to have a makeup stream on Thursday, so strap yourselves in, grab a snack, get some family, some friends in here. Let's have some conversation, whatever platform you're on, and she didn't sign her name. I wonder if that's a little secret that she keeps. She is walking around in my sleep. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. What a clusterfuck. I don't even know what to start with. I do know what to start with because I reorganized it like 3 times last night while I was getting ready to stream here tonight. But it was a hard choice as to what to start with. It really was. I'm anti-war. That's a big one for me. That's part of the reason that I chose to start with the airstrikes, because that's one of the big pet peeves to me. But I mean, with the Senate bill breaking, with the Mayorkas thing breaking, which they just voted on that like 25 minutes ago, and spoiler alert, Mayorkas goes scot-free because Republicans can't get their shit together. But we'll be talking about that actually down towards the bottom of the border crisis bill and everything else that's going on with that. We've got Israel aid. We've got the South Carolina primary that nobody even covered because, well, let's face it, nobody gave a fuck. Biden is running unopposed. I mean, yeah, Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson are there. Biden is running unopposed. He is 100% doing so. I've got the East Palestine derailment, Biden going there to visit there. That has to be at the bottom of the stack, simply based on the fact that they crammed so much news into this. And I don't know, again, if this is to try to distract from the Fani Willis thing or to try to distract from the failure on the border. But, well, and I knew this was going to happen. It's an election year. They keep trying to cram more and more in as they go. But we've got a lot here, definitely. So strap yourselves in. And I'll give you a couple updates, too, while we're going towards things I like, things that I hate, over the other thing that I released the other night. It was Thursday night when we sat down and had the comfy little stream that nobody came for. A little bit sad about that because, well, I know it's not the same thing I usually do here, but it was something I was fairly excited to share with you guys. But I'm not going to get too sad about this. We've got a lot to go over here today, so strap yourselves in and let's get started. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as the Daily Ignoramus and Overruled with KTZed. Very interesting stream over on Sunday. I was driving, so I had to lurk for the vast majority of it, but definitely worth listening to if you are not subscribed to KTZed. Go check that out. I cannot think of the lady's name right offhand, but it was a prostitute that had been accused and put to death for serial killing. But there's enough doubt in this, and even with me listening and lurking on the channel, there's enough doubt to it that I could say, that actually probably was the wrong decision for that. So go check that out. KTZed does a fantastic job explaining all that. Of course, go check out the Daily Ignoramus. It's always a lot of fun, and I'm so glad. And I lurk there too. I never get a chance to re-chat because I'm at work while Daily Ignoramus is on, but I'm glad to hear that some of you guys have gone over there and checked that out as well. But let's get down into the news and let's get started. Let's get my face up off the screen here because we have got, like I said, a lot to go over here today. And your chat boosts on the algorithm. So if you are watching on YouTube, on Rumble, on Twitch, feel free to make your opinion known because the more you talk, the more we get to the front page. And let's get into it. Let's get started. We got to start with some sad news today. The lyrics in the cold open, unfortunately. Toby Keith has passed away. New York Post reporting, country singer Toby Keith dead at age 62. This one hit a little bit because, while Toby Keith, I was a little bit averse to him when he went into his September 11th shtick, when he went down that avenue of things and started to change his image up into the big redneck conservative and the outspoken one. I mean, he had some really good songs with that too, like How Do You Like Me Now? That was actually a pretty good one. And the one that he did with Willie Nelson, Beer for My Horses, that was a great song. But I remember Toby Keith's early career, and he had some real bangers before the 9/11 thing just pole vaulted him out into the front of everybody here. So we're going to start with that. Nika Shakhnazarova and Lauren Samer reporting for this. Country music legend Toby Keith has died at 62 after a battle with stomach cancer. The Should Have Been a Cowboy singer died on Monday night, according to an official statement shared on social media. Toby Keith passed peacefully last night, February 5th, surrounded by his family, the Post reads. He fought his fight with grace and courage. Please respect the privacy of his family at this time. Just 2 weeks ago, the Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue, Angry American hitmaker, opened up about his cancer battle, revealing he was diagnosed in 2021. I was going through all the chemo, radiation, surgery, and I just got to the point where I was comfortable with whatever happened. I had my brain wrapped around it, and I was in a good spot either way, he told Oklahoma's News 9. The crooner praised his wife, Trisha Lucas, for being the best nurse as he underwent treatment. Oh, she's been a trooper. She's the best nurse. The first time we went to Houston, to the hospital, she stepped right in and she just took control and said, we got this, let's go. So she's like, we're going to get this, don't worry about it. He told his hometown outlet. Look at him, too. Just at the end. I mean, you can tell where he was struggling. He was fighting with it. Because Toby Keith was kind of a chunky guy in the 90s. He absolutely was. And with the stomach cancer and everything else and the chemo taking all the rest of it out of it, I mean, just looking with that image, you can tell that there is, like, he was hurting. He was struggling at the end. So I do wish him peace as he goes to the next part of his journey. This past June, Keith told the Oklahoman that he had spent more than 6 months undergoing chemo, radiation, and surgery. The multi-platinum certified singer first spoke about his cancer battle publicly in 2022. So far, so good, he said in the summer, I need time to breathe, recover, and relax. I'm looking forward to spending time with my family, but I will see the fans sooner than later. I can't wait. And we all knew it was coming. We really did. He was canceling shows. He had come out open about the fact that he had the cancer. And yeah, he was just looking rough by the end. It's a terrible thing. I have lost a lot of family members to cancer. I've got a genetic predisposition to myself, and yet I continue to smoke until, well, actually kind of recently. occasionally, since I moved here, when I get a little bit stressed out, I'll grab grab a pack, not an extra pack, but I'll grab a pack, and then by the time I'm through cigarette, like 17 or 18, I'm like, fuck, why the fuck did I do this? But, again, as much cancer is in my family, I probably really shouldn't, but Toby Keith, thank you for the memories. The lyrics that I put in the cold open this morning. Dreamwalkin' is probably one of my favorite Toby Keith songs. It's one of the first ones that I remember. That was early 90s. Well, no, it was late 90s. It was 98. I thought it was earlier than that. But it's one that always stuck in my mind. The imagery that goes with it. Just like Smoke Through the Keyhole, She Walks In So Silently. I love that song. The chord progression is great. That's actually, when I got ready to restring my guitar and reteach myself how to play guitar, that was one of the songs that went right on the list. Which, admittedly, I haven't started yet. Sorry, Steven. Admittedly, I have not started yet. But that was one of the songs that went right on the list of, hey, let's put that one there to learn. So, Toby Keith, thank you for the memories, thank you for the songs, and thank you for being immortalized the way that you have been. It's been great to listen to you throughout your life, throughout your career. And with that, now we get to the sucky news. So, well, strap yourselves in. Let's start with the breaking today. CNN Politics reporting Trump does not have presidential immunity in January 6 case, federal appeals court rules. From Devon Cole, Hannah Rabinovich, Holmes Librand, Caitlin Polance, and Marshall Cohen of CNN. Donald Trump is not immune from prosecution for alleged crimes he committed during his presidency to reverse the 2020 election results, a federal appeals court said on Tuesday. The ruling is a major blow to Trump's key defense thus far in the federal election subversion case brought against him by Jack Smith. The former president had argued that the conduct Smith charged him over was part of his official duties as president and therefore shield him from criminal liability. For the purpose of this criminal case, former President Trump has become Citizen Trump, with all the defenses of any other criminal defendant, but any executive immunity that may have protected him while he served as president no longer protects him against the prosecution, the court wrote. The ruling from the three-judge panel was unanimous. The three-judge panel who issued the ruling on Tuesday includes two judges, J. Michelle Childs and Florence Pan, who were appointed by Joe Biden, and one, Karen LaCraft Henderson, who was appointed by H.W. Wow, she's got to be getting up there then. H.W., that was, like, in my infancy. 88 to 92. I was born in 84. Yes, I know, the big 4-0 is coming up here because of that. I mean, she has been on the bench for, at the very least, 32 years. In a statement Tuesday, Trump spokesman Stephen Chung said to expect an appeal. President Trump respectfully disagrees with the D.C. Circuit's decision and will appeal in order to safeguard the presidency and the Constitution, Chung said. The court is giving Trump until February 12th to file an emergency stay request with the Supreme Court, which would stop the clock while his attorneys craft a more substantive appeal on the merits. If he is successful with that, the criminal trial will not resume until after the High Court decides what to do with his request for applause. If proven, the court wrote, Trump's efforts to usurp the 2020 presidential election would be an unprecedented assault on the structure of our government. It would be a striking paradox if the president, who alone is vested with the constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, were the sole officer capable of defying those laws with impunity, they wrote. Alright, we gotta talk about this. I am not going to win a lot of friends on Rumble. I am not going to win a lot of friends through conservative media. And this is not TDS talking. I think this was the right decision. With the actual problem being a prosecution like this shouldn't even be coming the fuck forward in the first place. There was clearly not an insurrection. Donald Trump did not incite it. There should be no reason we should be having this conversation right now. Period. But as far as it goes, no, presidents, if they commit a heinous crime, should be able to be tried. It brings us into the no one's above the law. If this were to go through, I don't like the precedent that this would set for other presidents who are really already corrupt, like the Hillary Clintons and the Joe Bidens of the world. There is some immunity that needs to be brought out to the presidency in order to conduct foreign diplomacy, in order to conduct military actions and command military actions, and yes, to some extent, to keep the peace in this country, should something terrible like the BLM riots break out. There needs to be some level of immunity to that. But it cannot be a blanket immunity. Lest, I don't know, a Hillary Clinton somewhere in the future get actually caught helping somebody to commit suicide by shooting himself twice in the back of the head. That is an actual heinous act, where as if acting in an officer, like not actually Hillary because she would never get elected to the office, but some hypothetical Hillary clone in the future corrupt and get caught murdering somebody. That's the reason that I agree with this, knowing full well that the presidency needs some immunity in order to function as the presidency, is that it leaves the situation in a case-by-case basis, not a blanket immunity situation. But we, again, wouldn't even be needing to have this godforsaken conversation if we weren't weaponizing the godforsaken DOJ. And that is the problem at the heart of all of this, that we're weaponizing the DOJ. They chanted "lock her up" during the Trump rallies, during the 2016 presidential election. They chanted it at the stadiums. They chanted it at the rallies. They chanted it online. And I'd always said, this is really stupid. While I don't argue the fact that Hillary Clinton has committed crimes, you find me a DOJ that is impartial enough to actually try Hill Dog fairly, number one. You find me a jury that could actually convict Hill Dog, number two, impartially, without political bias or impunity. And number three, you find a DOJ that's impartial enough that half the country would accept the verdict. Those are three problems that as a society we have not been able to come forward together with and solve. So I watched the speech, I watched the march, I watched the parade. Donald Trump committed no crimes on January 6th. There's no reason to be even having this conversation. But the conservatives out there don't agree with me. The Daily Wire reports, shredding the Constitution. Conservatives react to the latest ruling against Trump and legal cases. From Amanda Prestigiacomo. Conservatives blasted Democrats' lawfare tactics on Tuesday following a federal appeals court ruling that former President Trump does not have the presidential immunity from prosecution of alleged criminal acts related to the 2020 election interference. Trump's team made the appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit in connection with Special Counsel Jack Smith's election interference case, which Smith is notably trying to rush before the 2024 election. I think part of that is because he wants to make sure that he gets everything through before any of the records get slammed open. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia ruling that President Trump does not have immunity from prosecution sets a dangerous precedent, violates our Constitution, and threatens the very bedrock of our nation, Elise Stefanik said in a statement sent to the Daily Wire. President Trump's actions surrounding election integrity were within his official duties as the president, as he was investigating legitimate constitutional questions about the election, she continued. The precedent set today by the D.C. Circuit Court's decision means that the future presidents who leave office will likely face politicized prosecutions by the opposing party, which, again, is wrong. That's not what our DOJ is there for. Stefanik added, the president having immunity is necessary for any presidency to function properly. Stefanik is also co-sponsoring a resolution from Matt Gaetz, which asserts that Trump did not engage in an insurrection or rebellion against the U.S. Well, he clearly didn't. There is nothing in that speech that said, go into the Capitol, tell them you mean business. They'll use the vague term, fight like hell. And that's a load of fucking horseshit. Excuse my language. Let's listen to Matt Gaetz. Maybe. Technical difficulties, we might have to refresh this one. Dude, I watched that ticker go down of viewers over on Rumble. As soon as I said what I said, I pissed a lot of people off. I know I did. I stand by what I said. I'm not going to sit and retailer my message to try to pull views. I stand by what I said. 100%. All right.
The American people are smart. They know that the weaponized attacks of radical far-left prosecutors and Joe Biden's Department of Justice against President Donald Trump are nothing more than a targeted political witch hunt used to further their own extreme far-left political agenda and hijack the will of the American people come Election Day. As President Donald Trump continues to dominate in the polls, extreme Democrats will stop at nothing in attempt to prevent President Donald Trump from returning to the White House, and the Democrats are shredding the Constitution in the process. Joe Biden claims that democracy is on the ballot, yet the American people know that it is Joe Biden and Democrats who are openly attacking democracy. I am honored to stand as an original co-sponsor on Congressman Gaetz' resolution that President Donald Trump did not engage in insurrection or rebellion against the United States. That is a fact. Rogue far-left Democrat operatives are attempting to use this lie to illegally take President Trump off the ballot. This week, the Supreme Court will begin arguments in Trump v. Anderson to determine if liberal activist judges have the right to erase Donald Trump from the ballot, steal the election, and the American people's right to elect our leaders. For the sake of American democracy, I am proud to fight for President Trump and the tens of millions of American patriots who face political persecution. With that, I'm honored to turn it over to Bill Posey, our colleague who is also a co-sponsor of this bill. Bill.
So, and as a congressional resolution, I don't necessarily know how far any of this would actually go with them saying that he didn't commit an insurrection. Again, now that the grand jury has come together, the court can dismiss it, but I don't believe, especially with separation of powers, that the Congress can compel a court to dismiss a case. If there is a Supreme Court precedent for that, I would love to have a fact check on that to see if I am right or wrong about that. So it's mainly symbolic. But once again, the big one for me is there's absolutely no reason we even need to be having this conversation right now. There was no insurrection. There were no armaments. There were a few confused people walking around in the there were a bunch of confused people walking around in the rotunda. A couple people getting led through the halls by security. And a big mob mentality of people outside the Capitol screaming. There was not an insurrection. None. And I know if I went over and said that on X, some leftoid would be right there with the picture of people climbing the walls saying, "See, the mainstream media told me there was an insurrection." I'm looking at the Instagram feed. I don't know how I look on the YouTube side, but I am looking at the Instagram feed, and I looked way too goddamn much like a soy jack when I did that. Holy shit. Anyway. That is the immunity case. Let's talk about the airstrikes. More illegality from the demented, brain-dead Biden administration. From the Associated Press, U.S. hits hard at militias in Iraq and Syria retaliating for fatal drone attack. From Terra Cop, Abdul Rahman Zayed and Lolita Sibaldor. The U.S. military launched an air assault on dozens of sites in Iraq and Syria used by Iranian-backed militias and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard on Friday, in the opening salvo of retaliation for the drone strike that killed 3 U.S. troops in Jordan last weekend. A fucking week late, by the way. Just gonna put that right out there. I'll talk about that in a sec. Let's nail down what the Associated Press wants you to believe are the facts, and then we'll go from there. The massive barrage of strikes hit more than 85 targets at 7 locations, including command and control headquarters, intelligence centers, rockets and missiles, drone and ammo storage sites, and other facilities that were connected to the militias or the IRGC's Quds Force, the Guard's expeditionary unit that handles Tehran's relationship with an arming of regional militias. And Biden made it clear. He made it as clear as he could, man. Talking like this. Biden made it clear in a statement that there will be more to come, because of fucking course there will. The U.S. strikes appeared to stop short of directly targeting Iran or senior leaders of the Revolutionary Guard Quds forces within its borders, because that actually would be an act of war, by the way. It would show a little bit of spine, but it also would be an act of war, as the U.S. tries to prevent the conflict from escalating even further. Iran has denied it was behind the Jordan attack. It was unclear what the impact will be on the strikes. Days of U.S. warnings may have sent militia members scattering into hiding. No, that's actually what happened. That's not may have, that's actually what happened. With multiple groups operating at various locations in several countries, a knockout blow is unlikely. Though one of the main Iran-backed militias, KTZed Hezbollah, said that it was suspending attacks on American troops, others have vowed to continue fighting, casting themselves as champions of the Palestinian cause, while the war in Gaza shows no sign of ending. Alright. So, what he did, let's get the map out. I know this will mean the Mogwai is going to get excited if he pops up here, about the fact that we're going to go to Thursday because we're bringing the map out, and apparently that means that I'm going to go long. Open this up in maps and bring this over here. Alright. So, here's Iran. Tehran, capital of Iran. Which was what a lot of people were calling for Biden to do in the first place, but a lot of those people are called war pigs. And war pigs want to see a war, especially in the midst of an otherwise tumultuous presidency, because, well, we're looking at the fact that, hey, people don't like to change horses in the middle of the river. There is where the attacks took place. Now, what we are seeing here are attacks that were within this area, which has a tenuous allied relationship with the U.S., and Syria, which has been anybody's guess for the last 20 years. But we do have at least a diplomatic relationship with. What Biden did was he went through and bombed targets in these areas after giving warnings for 7 full days. Because he has diplomatic ties with Damascus and Baghdad. Now, if he would have gone further out and gone into Iran itself, yes, that would have been an act of war. It would have showed a pair of stones, but that would have been an act of war. And we would probably be arming up right now to go through here. The reason, and part of the reason that I have a big problem with this, is that this is, at the point of 7 days later, is an act of aggression. It is no longer a retaliatory strike or a defensive strike. 7 days later. If he would have done this on Sunday, I still would have been saying the same thing about the war drum beating and everything else, but I wouldn't be criticizing the timing the way that I am, or saying that's an act of aggression. I would be openly saying that it was retaliatory. The fact that he waited 7 days and gave the warning the whole time, oh, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, you tested me, I'm going to do it, as the Associated Press said, came out and gave these forces the chance to get the hell out of their bunkers. Clear them all out. Maybe get a lot of their equipment out of there. And go hide somewhere else. And the thing that bothers me about this, especially with the diplomatic relationship with both Damascus and Baghdad, is the fact that our intelligence knew where these sites were. That's why they went back and struck them. But they still waited 7 whole days to do it. I mean, when you sit back and look at this, you look and you see, hey, I'm going to do it, man. I'm telling you, I'm a wartime president. I'm going to take you back behind the woodshed. You better not attack back. Now, if he stops with this, we may be able to pull out a diplomatic solution. Go talk with the Guard Corps at some point. I know that they're out there screaming, the mullahs are screaming death to America. But you can still come back out and say, okay, you had your fun, you launched off your rocket. We promise, crossed fingers, we're not going to do it again, anything else like that. But now we're talking about full-on acts of aggression in a region that has been unstable since Abraham was walking around. I don't think this had the effect that the Biden admin and the Biden supporters think that it's going to. The LA Times, of all outlets, actually seems to agree with me. Although, as a moron, I didn't archive that, so I guess we're not reading that one tonight. I'm going to read just briefly here from this NBC News one and see if this one will pop up in archive for us quick, because it's already started to go. With U.S. strikes in Iraq and Syria, Biden sends Iran a signal of deterrence and restraint. Yeah, unfortunately, the signal of restraint, I think, was the wrong signal for this. Keir Simmons, Mo Abbas, and Alexander Smith reporting. Hold on. Are your recruitments that low on a targeted ad that they say join the military as a senior and earn up to a $75,000 bonus? Are you out of that much money? Or I'm sorry, that many troops that you need to recruit seniors? Let these people retire, good God. Go try to trick the kids in the school. The dozens of airstrikes. Mr. Zed joining over on the Instagram side. Welcome in. Enjoy your chili dogs, by the way. The dozens of airstrikes launched by the U.S. late Friday are by far the biggest attacks against Iran-backed militias in the Middle East during this current round of conflict. However, the strikes in Iraq and Syria and initial retaliation for the killing of 3 American soldiers did not go as far as some hawkish figures had hoped. Nikki Haley. As the White House tries to avoid an all-out war with Iran, some regional watchers have warned that this apparent restraint, including telegraphing the attacks well in advance, may mean the militias feel emboldened to continue their violence against American forces in the region. No, that's not a may embolden them. I mean, Mr. Zed can probably answer for this there, having spent so much time in the region. The details, most of which I don't know about, but I know some of which, but having spent the time in the region, I mean, this is Asia, which requires a show of strength. Well, Asia Minor, I should say, but still, this is Asia. Yes, showing restraint is going to embolden the people there because that's their culture. That's the way they've been brought up since they were little kids. The bombings drew an angry reaction from Iraq itself, which summoned the U.S. envoy to protest and said the strikes on its soil had killed civilians and risked destabilizing the region. Why does that not surprise me? Oh, of course. Can you repeat the question? The question, well, it's more the assertion than the question, though, is that, let's see, from NBC News says, some regional watchers have warned that this apparent restraint, including telegraphing the attacks well in advance, may mean the militias feel emboldened to continue their violence against American forces in the region. And I asserted that, yes, because of the way that they're brought up in their culture in the Middle East, no, that's not a may embolden, that is a will embolden. The Mogwai has joined us over on the Twitch side as well, by the way. I keep saying we're working our way to a draft. Well, apparently they're going to go to the seniors first, according to the targeted ad on the side of NPC News. No, it's drill baby drill, not bomb baby bomb, Graham. Yeah, they absolutely will be emboldened. Yeah, Mr. Zed has been in that region. He knows what the people are like. And yes, I would like to see what the reports are that Iraq can come up with that say that they hit civilians, because after seeing the Obama admin for as long as I did, I would not be surprised at all to find out that Biden also hit civilians with utter disregard. You show weakness even a little bit and they will keep striking, says Mr. Zed. Yeah, that's Asia. And it's similar-ish from Asia Minor all the way out to Japan. And yes, that does include Russia to an extent too, considering most of Russia is in Asia. Syria said the U.S. was fueling regional conflict in a very dangerous way. Yeah. Iranian officials have been similarly hostile, and Tehran, although also reluctant to see a wider war, has warned American strikes would not go unanswered. What you saw last night, and what you're going to see again, is not insignificant, a senior Biden admin official told NBC News. When you hit 85 targets over 30 minutes, that sends a strong signal about the capability that we have. The official said, adding that there are other things that we're going to do, some you will see and some you won't see. They gave us a map of the sites that they actually hit. So when we looked at the other map, we don't see that, but we've got Arkashat, Al-Qaim, Al-Mayadeen Power Station, Bu Kamal, I think is how that's pronounced, and Deir al-Zur along the Iraqi and Syrian border. The past 24 hours in which U.S. fighter jets also hit Houthi rebel drones in Yemen, and Israel was suspected of killing an Iranian military advisor in Syria, will do little to tamp down rising tensions across the Middle East. The European Union's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, described the situation Saturday as a boiler that can explode. Let's see. Mr. Zed says, they do not understand the concept of don't mistake my compassion for weakness. Any compassion is weakness in their eyes. Absolutely. Mogwai says, Asia, it was the heat of the moment. Telling me what my heart meant in the heat of the moment showed in your eyes. Alright, let's grab this one from the LA Times since that finished archiving while I was here. Will Biden's Goldilocks airstrikes against Iranian-backed militias work? Short answer, no. From Doyle McManus. The recent airstrikes against Iran-backed militias were the largest President Biden had ordered since he took office, a pointedly large-scale retaliation for drone attacks that killed three U.S. soldiers in Jordan. But they were also designed as what some officials puckishly called a Goldilocks option, large enough to do major damage, but not so big that Iran would feel compelled to respond. Except that they will. Take care, Mr. Zed. The Friday strikes in Iraq and Syria did considerable damage to missile sites and other installations used by Iran's allies in those countries on Saturday. The U.S. and Britain hit the Iran-supplied Houthi rebels in Yemen, who have been attacking international shipping in the Red Sea. But if the aim was to deter Iran and its proxies once and for all, it's unlikely to succeed. Like Mr. Zed was saying, like I was saying, it's actually likely to do the opposite at this point. The goal of the offensive was more than simple retaliation. It was to destroy as much of the Iranian proxy forces' weaponry as possible and deter the groups from future attacks, all while without igniting a major war with their sponsors in Tehran. Well, let me see how that works for you. We'll be watching. Definitely. So, that is our Middle East news. Now see this? Going all the way down to here is all the border stuff that we have. And then we've actually got more congressional stuff based on a supposedly clean Israel aid bill. So strap yourselves in. I am going to skip over some of this because we don't have to go through all of it. But yeah, that's all the stuff I have on the border bill that got released. Iran is not really known for turning the other cheek and letting things go. Yeah, that's been that way since it was called Persia. He said strap in, not strap on, Lindsey Graham. Alright, from CBS News, senators release border Ukraine deal that would allow the president to pause U.S. asylum law and quickly deport migrants. Except he already has that power. And they don't need a new bill to do that. He just needs to do it. I've read this bill cover to cover, by the way. And most everything that it's talked about in this bill, the presidency already has the power to do. They don't need extra money. They don't need extra funding. They've got the personnel to do so. But they made a big show out of it because they wanted to get their Ukraine and Israel funding. We have an author for this one, Camilo Montoya Galvez. A trio of senators on Sunday released a bipartisan immigration agreement with the White House that would give the president far-reaching powers to clamp down on unlawful border crossings, which he already fucking has, including the authority to turn away migrants without allowing them to request asylum, which he already has. The deal, which has been months in the making, would overhaul the American border policy by restricting access to the asylum system during spikes in illegal immigration, making it harder for migrants to pass the initial asylum screenings, and ramping up deportations of those found to be ineligible for U.S. refuge. Also not true, by the way. They put a big loophole on page 195 of that bill. The agreement would preserve asylum processing at the border, official border crossing, and allow migrants who pass their asylum interviews to work in the U.S. legally. The agreement was negotiated by Republican Senator James Lankford, Democrat Senator Chris Murphy, Independent Senator Kyrsten Sinema, Democrat, and top Biden admin officials after Republican lawmakers demanded restrictions to U.S. asylum law in exchange for supporting more military aid to Ukraine. If enacted, the bipartisan compromise would be the first major update to U.S. immigration since the 90s, the last time Congress passed a large-scale immigration law. And again, I remind you that the vast majority of what was asked for in this bill, not just what the right-wing commentators are telling you, but I sat down and read this thing cover to cover. The vast majority of what's in this is already in the president's purview. While the deal will likely garner the support of many Democrats and some Republican senators, including Mitch McConnell, no, he actually backpedaled on that one. We'll talk about that later. Its prospects for the GOP-led House are much less certain. House Speaker Mike Johnson and other conservatives in the chamber have denounced elements of the negotiations in the Senate, instead calling on Biden to use his executive power to deter migrants from coming into the U.S., which, as I have mentioned, he already fucking has. On Sunday, Johnson said the proposal would be DOA. If it reaches the House, the bill is even worse than we expected, and it won't come close to ending the border catastrophe the president has created, he added. Nonetheless, the agreement represents a major pivot on immigration by Mr. Biden. Right after taking office 3 years ago, he promised to restore the U.S. asylum system and dismantle Trump-era border policies that contravened our values and caused needless human suffering. Yet he still puts the kids in cages. But after facing record levels of migrant apprehensions at the southern border and a growing chorus of criticism from Democrat leaders and communities struggling to help migrants, Mr. Biden and his admin have embraced drastic restrictions on asylum. In fact, the deal brokered by the White House would be one of the toughest border and immigration laws in modern history, and would not legalize any of the estimated 11 million immigrants living in the U.S. without permission, an element of comprehensive immigration reform long championed by Democrat lawmakers. It is not the toughest law in modern history, by any stretch of the imagination. Do you know how hard it is to get into Canada as a migrant? Even as a tourist? Do you have any concept of an idea of how tough Canadian immigration law is? This is nowhere close to a tough immigration law. If this was a tough immigration law, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. If Canada had a law like this at their border, Donald Trump probably would have been reelected, because all those people would have run to Canada like they all promised that they were going to do. So no, this is in no way at all a tough immigration law. And we'll go over some of the stuff that's in it here, some of the stuff that they want you to talk about, and some of the stuff that they missed over here. But it is on the brink of defeat ahead of a key Senate vote. Morgan Rimmer and Ted Barrett and Claire Ferran of CNN reporting. So it might not even make it out of the Senate at this point. A major bipartisan border deal and foreign aid package appears on track to fail in the Senate later this week, one day after its release amid relentless attacks from former President Donald Trump and top House Republicans, because of course they have to go blame him. Republicans opposed the deal, including Trump, have attacked it as too weak, even though it would mark a tough change to immigration law. Yeah, 5,000 people allowed before they can shut down the border a day. No, that's not a tough immigration law. A tough immigration law would be you're not even permitted to attempt to come into the country as an immigrant, unless you have a sponsor, a job lined up, and a way that you are going to be a net positive to Canada in writing. That would be a tough immigration law. This is an amnesty law. The grim odds facing the bill would also put aid to Ukraine and Israel, two key U.S. allies, in jeopardy. Ukraine does not have a formal alliance with the U.S. Israel does. In jeopardy, and it's unclear if Congress would be able to pass the foreign aid separately. Mike Johnson has already said the border deal would be dead on arrival in the House. It would only take 41 senators voting against the bill to sink the deal in an upcoming procedural vote on Wednesday. And there are already 23 who have signaled publicly that they're going to oppose it. I think the proposal is dead, Roger Wicker of Mississippi said when he asked about his position on the border bill after departing the meeting at in the Turtle Man McConnell's office on Monday. McConnell, who helped negotiate the package, told GOP senators that they should vote however they want when the Senate casts a key procedural vote Wednesday to take up the bill. So, this might not even make it to the House, which I think is actually fantastic. If you guys do want to read the bill, it was a little bit difficult to find and know that this was what I was looking at first. because this is actually a defense appropriation bill. So when I was first reading this, I did not realize that this was the bill in place at first. So I'm going to put the link in the Rumble here in the chat for you guys. It's already in the Discord. Thank you to Yader Hay over in the Discord for finding that for me. Even though I had found it at the same time, he had put the effort and he actually put the link in. So that is the link to the PDF for this. And I mean, read it yourself. It's 370 pages, but the vast majority of them are like half pages, and look at the size of these margins and have almost no information on there. There's a lot of legalese. I will warn you full out, there's a lot of legalese to this, but I do encourage you to read it. And the information is out there. But what really threw me off is there are 90 pages in and of themselves about the aid to Ukraine and other military procurements. $89 pages, I should say, that are just military procurements. The bill itself does not start the immigration part of the bill. Back up here. On page 90, and I want you guys to see, and the reason I want you to read this, I know Mogwai says this thing's going to crash. Oh wait, sorry, too soon. Yeah, it is going to crash, but I want you to see what it is the mainstream media is trying to tell you is a tough immigration bill. Because this ain't it. This is not it by any stretch of the imagination. Page 93 is where text actually starts, and there are only maybe a handful of pages that people are actually upset with. But part of the reason is the majority of this is HR, appropriations for HR, giving the executive branch, specifically the Border Patrol, raises, allocating the funds to do so, and deciding who gets what raises when. There are almost 100 pages of just that. And as you go down into the lower 300s, one of the things that you'll also notice, which I was very surprised that we didn't hear from the Ben Shapiros of the world, that we didn't hear from the Matt Walshes of the world and the Tim Pools of the world, is there's a large section of this bill that's concerned about Afghan refugees and patriating them to the United States, allowing them to get off the bases, get jobs, and actually enter our society with a path to citizenship. I was very surprised to not hear anybody talking about that. Because remember, by the way, we still have a bunch of them living on army bases in the middle of the country, including just down the road from here over at Fort McCoy. So, the information's out there. Let's see what the pundit class has to say about it, though. The politics brief. This is not a green check verified source, but it gave me a lot of links to what some of the big opponents are saying about this here. A bipartisan border deal just dropped, and the Senate Republicans behind it is facing furious backlash. I'm sorry, the Republican behind it is facing backlash. The Calvin Coolidge Project, Xing out the bipartisan bill negotiated by Republican Senator James Lankford, has officially been released. $60 billion in military aid to Ukraine, $14 billion in military aid to Israel, and $20 billion for border security. With the annotation: $60 billion to support Ukraine, $14.1 in security assistance for Israel, $2.44 to support operations in Central Command and address combat expenditures, $10 billion in humanitarian assistance to provide food, water, shelter, medical care, and other essential services to civilians in Gaza and West Bank, Ukraine, and other populations caught in the conflict, $4.83 billion to support key regional partners in the Indo-Pacific and deter aggression by the Chinese government. That's your Taiwan portion. Another $2.3 for Ukraine's displaced by Putin's war of aggression. That's propagandistic. The bipartisan border policy changes negotiated by Chris Murphy, Sinema, and James Lankford. $20.23 billion to address existing international needs and expand capabilities of the nation's borders. The Fentanyl Eradication and Narcotics Deterrence, or FEND, Fentanyl Act. And $400 million for the Nonprofit Security Grant Program to help nonprofits and all places of worship make security enhancements. Ryan James Godersky says, there it is, what Sinema and Lankford swore wasn't in the bill. It guarantees that up to 1.8 million illegal aliens can come over a border before it's an emergency. The section he is referring to. Mandatory activation. The Secretary shall activate the Border Emergency Authority if, during a period of 7 consecutive calendar days, there's an average of 5,000 or more aliens who are encountered each day, or on any one calendar day, a combined total of 8,500 or more aliens are encountered. Calculation of activation in general, for purposes of subparagraphs A and B, the average for the applicable 7-day period shall be calculated using the sum of the number of encounters that occur between the southwest land border ports of entry of the United States, the number of encounters that occur between the ports of entry along the southern coastal borders. So, 5,000 a day before they consider any of this an emergency. If you want to live in a war zone, go to Detroit or Chicago. I do not recommend going to Chicago. Stop Woke Culture says this bill takes jobs away from Americans and gives it to criminals who crossed into our country illegally. Let's read this section here from Mike Howell Tweets. Section 5, Employment Authorization in general. Employment authorization shall be provided to aliens described in the subsection in accordance with Section 235C. That is taken a little bit out of context. Howell also points out that it puts a far-left D.C. District Court in charge, even if Donald Trump takes over. The U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, not a Texas court, not an Arizona court, but the District Court for the D.C., the one that just handed Trump his ass in the immunity case, shall have sole and original jurisdiction to hear all challenges, whether constitutional or otherwise, to the validity of this section or any written policy directive, written policy guideline, written procedure, or the implementation thereof issued by or under the authority of the Secretary to implement this section. So according to this, they would have the final say, and it cannot be elevated to the Supreme Court if this particular bill were to be challenged in court. Should Trump get reelected and then not have a veto-proof majority in the House and Senate. Because, of course, they can go back and just repeal this whole thing if they have a major majority in the House and a 60-plus vote in the Senate. Anybody got a Ouija board to contact Nancy on how the war on drugs goes? Well, I'll ask you this. Can you burn the Ouija board? Alright, what else do we have in here? Payday for pro-illegal immigration NGOs. Let's get this one up here. To the Federal Emergency Management Agency, federal assistance for the Shelter and Services Program, not more than $933,333,333 shall be available for transfer immediately upon the enactment of this act. Almost $1 billion for the FEMA Shelter and Services Program. An additional $350 million shall be available for transfer upon submission of written certification by the Secretary of Homeland Security to the Committee on Appropriations of the House of Representatives and the Senate that the U.S. Immigration Customs and Enforcement has. the ability to detain 46,500 individuals, and has increased the total number of enforcement and removal operations deportation officers by 200 above current board levels, creating 200 more government jobs, by the way. Increase the total number of U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers by 200 above the current board levels as of the date of this enactment, and increase the total number of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services asylum officers by 800 above the current board levels as of the date of enactment of this act. The bill explicitly calls for the release of illegal aliens despite being framed as ending catch and release. Release from custody. Aliens referred for proceedings under this section shall be released from physical custody and processed in accordance with the procedures as described in this section. An adult alien, including head of a household, who is referred for a proceeding under this section shall be supervised under the Alternatives to Detention program of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement immediately upon release from physical custody and continuing for the duration of such proceeding. So, yes, catch and release is explicitly in there too. Doesn't this bill look like so much fun? And yeah, that's only scratching the surface. I do, again, recommend that you read this thing, the entirety. It's wild what they try to jam into this. And the Democrats are trying to push this thing like it's a good idea, and it's bipartisan. Even though the only person who really seemed to be behind it is Jim Lankford. Forbes reports the Senate bill adds immigrant visas and H-1B family protections. Stuart Anderson reporting. A new bipartisan Senate bill focuses on the border and military aid, but also includes additional family and employment-based green cards. The surprise provision on immigrant visas would provide modest backlog relief after months of negotiations. Other unexpected measures in the bill include age-out protection for many long-time visa holders, which means the overstay people, which is the vast majority of illegal immigration in this country, no longer have to worry about deportation. And a path to permanent residence for Afghans paroled in the U.S. after escaping the Taliban takeover. So Forbes actually did talk about this. The Mogwai says, more bureaucrats, hold on, I need lotion and a towel. I got dry ankles. Mike Johnson of Louisiana may not allow a vote on the bill in the House since he opposes aid to Ukraine and has called the bill dead on arrival. Likely GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump announced he favors using border problems as a political issue, while other Republicans openly stated they feared giving President Biden a political win, which had already endangered the bill. Which was a dumb fuck thing to say. This bill is terrible on its face. You don't need to give the mainstream media ammo to say that it's all political. This is a terrible bill on its face. You don't need to bring politics into it to kill this thing. Well, to sour it in the eyes of the American people. You can say, look at all the asylum. Look at all the people who are allowed before they shut the border down. Look at all the money they're going to give out to CBP. That should be enough to tank this thing. But yes, they also have a expansion of chain migration. Isn't that exciting? I'm going to skip this one. We've gone over the 5 key takeaways already. Tim Pool, the Beanie Boy, who is currently wandering around West Virginia muttering, Civil War! Civil War! Civil War! Oh my God, Civil War! This bill doesn't even count the majority of criminal aliens. Limitation. Aliens described in subsection A, section 2, paragraph C, from non-contiguous countries shall not be included in calculating the sum of aliens encountered. That means it's only Mexicans that are counted in this. Iranians, Haitians, Yemenis. They're not counted in any of this. Let's listen to what my senator has to say about this one. He X's out the president and Dems do not want to secure the borders. They caused this crisis. And in fact, it's been an insurmountable problem in negotiations. And now that the text of the bill has been released, it appears even worse than we feared. Ron Johnson, everybody.
Let's face it, President Biden is just lying, bold-faced the American public when he said he's been asking Republicans since day one to give him the authority to close the border. No, he took over when we had a largely secure border. President Trump secured it using existing law, and President Biden went about dismantling all the successful programs that Trump put in place to secure the border. So the problem that Senate negotiators have had dealing with this administration and Democrat senators is President Biden and those Democrats want an open border. They caused the problem. They're the root cause. And from my standpoint, I think what this negotiation has been all about is just giving Democrats political cover now that mayors Adams and Johnson in New York City and Chicago are screaming about the fact that a small percentage of the 6 million people that Joe Biden has led in this country are going to destroy their cities. Of course, they're not looking for a solution at the border. They're looking for more federal funding. So the Democrat position here, from my standpoint, is absurd. This president has had all the authority he needs to secure the border. He's the one that caused this crisis. And that just is almost an insurmountable problem in negotiating with them to actually secure the border. How do you force the hand of a lawless president?
Well, and part of the problem, too, and this is like what I said in Things That I Hate last week, is that Democrats are open about it. Republicans are at least squishy about it when they say it, but both of these people are looking to make sure that their slave class stays slaves. Charlotte Clymer, the transgender thought leader on the left, coming right out and saying, oh, well, if we deport all these people, who's going to do all the jobs that the Americans don't want to do? Well, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, if they want them done, somebody's going to do it. They're going to find somebody to do it. Some of them might have to suck it up and do it themselves. I full out oppose a slave class. I can't believe that's a controversial position in something like this. A class of people who can't complain about their wages without fear of being deported. And I was the prick, too, by the way, when I worked with illegal immigrants in a managerial position. There was a blank button on, the old 90s style multi-line phone in my office. There was a button that didn't have a number attached to it, and I didn't actually put the number in for it, but I took a little piece of paper off there, I took the button out, and I wrote INS on that paper. I was that prick.
Let's face it, President Biden is just...
You know who is, by the way, in support of this whole thing? Remember where I said at the top, probably 50 to 100 pages of this of the immigration portion of this bill is nothing but HR and raises? You know who is support of this? NBC News reports. As conservatives bulk, the U.S. Border Patrol Union endorses the Senate immigration deal. You know why? Because it gives them a raise. It gets them more union dues. Julie Sirkin reporting, as conservatives in Congress have blasted the new bipartisan border agreement for not going far enough, the legislation earned a key endorsement on Monday. The public sector, the union that's negotiating against the American taxpayer, the labor union that represents the U.S. Border Patrol agents. The National Border Patrol Council, which represents more than 18,000 agents, said the bill would drop illegal border crossings nationwide. False. And will allow our agents to get back to detecting and apprehending those who want to cross our border illegally and evade apprehension. It's a significant statement of support from a group that endorsed former President Trump in 2020 and has repeatedly railed against Biden's handling of the border. While not perfect, the Border Act of 2024 is a step in the right direction. It's far better than the current status quo. Brandon Judd, president of the council, who stands to make a fortune off of this fucking bill, said in a statement, "This is why the National Border Patrol Council endorses this bill and hopes for its quick passage," Judd said, with dollar signs in his eyes. Just last week, Judd attended a House Republican roundtable in the Capitol entitled "The Impact of the Biden Border Crisis" and slammed the Biden admin for having destabilized our southwest border. Shock of all shocks. The Turtle Man seems to have had a change of heart in the midst of this. Johnny MAGA, tweeting out, "A decrepit Mitch McConnell just spoke from the Senate floor and urged his colleagues to pass the Biden amnesty bill in order to deter Moscow, Beijing, and Tehran." Which, given Mitch McConnell's known positions, I am not surprised by that at all because, well, it's money for warmongering and foreign aid and everything else the globalists like Mitch McConnell want.
My colleagues know where I stand. They know as well as I do that American adversaries.
When I make fun of Mitch McConnell on his voice, when I sit here and talk like this, that's actually how he talks.
In Moscow, Beijing, and Tehran are working together to undermine us. And they know that the time has finally come for the Senate to respond with strength. The national security legislation we're preparing to take up will invest heavily in the capabilities and capacity of America and our allies need to regain the upper hand over this emerging axis of authoritarians. Make no mistake, the gauntlet has been thrown, and America needs to pick it up. My colleagues know where I stand. They know as well.
Yes, we know where you stand. Give away the foreign aid money to anybody who needs it other than us. But he appears to actually have backed down on this one here. The Daily Wire reporting, Senate Minority Leader Turtleman McConnell signals retreat from border bill. From Daily Wire News. The Turtle Man, McConnell's reportedly urging Republicans in the Senate to vote against a border bill. That was unveiled in the Democrat-controlled chamber on Monday, which is probably why this thing fails now. House critics of the bill have warned that the $118 billion package is geared towards getting Biden reelected in a prospective 2020 rematch. Ron DeSantis said the bill legalizes illegal immigration. Not quite, but it does open the door for a lot of it. Numerous senators have already come out and voiced strong opposition to the bill, leading McConnell to urge the remaining Republican senators to block the bill. Which way should I go on this bill here? I think that I should, because look at all that aid. I should back this and send all that aid out to Ukraine and the army. Let me just check which way the wind is blowing. Oh wait, no, I think we should all block this bill. Because that's the way the political wind is blowing. God, Mitch McConnell makes his decisions like Ron DeSantis does. McConnell recommended GOP senators stand behind closed doors, that they block the border bill on Wednesday per multiple sources because it's clear that most Republicans are preparing to vote no, either because they oppose the bill or they want more time. Reporter Andrew Desiderio wrote on X. No spine. The Mogwai says, I worked a year in a plant nursery. Majority of the illegals that came across were good people. Well, and that's the other thing too. I mean, as people, I don't necessarily have a problem with the majority of illegals that I've met. I mean, the majority of them are awesome people deep down, but they're still in violation of U.S. immigration law. I would love to see a lot of them that I've met throughout my life go back down to even just start from Mexico and start the actual asylum process, because I think they'd be assets to our society. But I want them to go through and get vetted and show everybody else who wants to come and immigrate. I'm not an anti-immigrant hawk. I know a lot of my friends are. I want to see these guys go through the legal process. The guy that I worked with when I lived out in Mass, his name was Jose. I think his name was Jose. That's what they told me his name was. Whatever his name was in Guatemala, I have no idea. But they told me his name was Jose, and hilarious guy. Absolute riot to be around. One of the hardest workers I've ever met. His friend Marco, who was legal, was probably one of the best mechanics I've ever met in my life. He was a bus mechanic in Guatemala. He came through, he did it legally. I mean, the guy just, if he didn't have a tool that he needed, he made a tool out of what he had in his toolbox. That's the kind of guy that he was. And Jose was not very far behind him. Spoke absolutely no English. Nobody knew if he was legal or not. Fantastic guy. But I would have loved to see him go down and actually, I think he would have passed. I think he would have done fantastically in flying colors on at least the green card portion, if not the citizenship application. But as far as McConnell goes, yeah, he's just going whichever the way the wind blows. Let's see. Mogwai muttering what Tim Pool's muttering. Civil War! Nigerians. Yes, that's another one that doesn't get counted in the totals, because that's a non-contiguous country. Even if their princes come over. The Mogwai says, revisionist history at its finest. The border was wide open, and the Democrats were keeping it open. Well, a lot of the neocon Republicans were too, because under both cases, that's free slave, well, not free, but cheap slave labor to their billionaire donors on both parties. Mitch changed directions faster than Lindsey Graham in a ladyboy brothel. Gross. Alright, where are we at? 118 mark. So, I've not listened to this clip prior. This is going to be my first time, but it's Chuck Schumer on MSDNC, where he thinks that no Republican is watching. Posobiec tweets out, breaking, U.S. Senate leader Chuck U. Schumer threatened to send U.S. soldiers to fight Russia in eastern Ukraine if the border bill isn't passed. I want to see if he actually said that, or if Posobiec is taking that out of context.
We're at a turning point in America. This bill is crucial, and history will look back on it and say, did America fail itself? Why is it crucial? Well, if we don't aid Ukraine, Putin will walk all over Ukraine. We will lose the war, and we could be fighting in Eastern Europe and a NATO ally in a few years. Americans won't like that. If we don't help Israel defend itself against Hamas, that perpetual war will go on and on and on. If we don't help humanitarian aid to the starving Palestinians in Gaza, hundreds of thousands could starve. And the border, everyone has said it's chaos. A speaker, you just saw Speaker Johnson, he said it's chaos, we have to do something legislative a few months ago. But what has happened, in answer to your question, so this is crucial for America. It's a turning point. History is going to look over our shoulders.
I don't disagree with what Chuck said there. Yes, they've been calling to do something legislatively for a long time. The problem is that what they did legislatively is so packed with fucking pork you can't see the beginning and end of it.
And say, did we rise to the occasion? To his credit, Mitch McConnell did. But too many Republicans, including Speaker Johnson, are just scared to death of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has said he wants chaos. Donald Trump has said, well, wait till I become president. That'll take at least a year. Ukraine could be gone. The border will get much worse. War in the Middle East will get worse, maybe bringing us into it. He's doing it all for political reasons. And let me just say, will senators, the crucial question, the $64,000 question, the majority of Republican senators know this bill is the right thing to do. It's a compromise. I don't like everything in it. Neither does McConnell. But it's a compromise. That's the only way you get things important done in the Senate. We proved that 2 years ago in our bipartisan legislation. And will the senators drown out the political noise from Trump and his minions and do the right thing for America? It's a crucial question. History is looking down on every one of us right now.
So he didn't quite say that they're going to go send our kids to go fight in eastern Ukraine, but what he did say is that if we don't give money to... Then it's the same propagandistic bullshit that they've been saying since the first time the Russian tanks went over the border into the Donbass region. That if we don't give all of our money and every weapon that we have and unlimited support to the Ukraine, then tomorrow Russia will be in Poland, a NATO ally, and then we'll be fighting them. I still, to this day, have yet to see evidence that Russia is trying to go anywhere past the Donbass region, past the Dnipro River. That is a bullshit statement from Schumer. We might have some breaking news going on right now. I glanced over at X while this was going off here, but it's possible. And the only thing that I'm seeing recently is from the New York Times, a former newspaper. But it looks like Ronna McDaniel might be out. Trying to find out. Let's see. Sarah Carter says Ronna McDaniel is out as the head of the RNC over on X. But I don't see any corroboration right now. A lot of people are recommending that Pressler go and take her place, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I know that a lot of the more conservative people, like some of my very close friends, would not be appreciative of that because Pressler is as queer as a $3 bill, but he's open about it. I'll be watching for confirmation on that as we go through videos, but yeah, it's looking like she'd be gone. Let's grab this one from the New York Times really quickly. Ronna McDaniel, RNC chairwoman, plans to step down. Trump is likely to back election denier Michael Whatley, the head of the North Carolina GOP, to replace her. The chairwoman, McDaniel, has told former President Trump that she is planning on stepping down shortly after the South Carolina primary on February 24th. According to two people familiar with the plans. Now, this is, we go back to the Mogwai's cat here. This is an unnamed source. Mr. Trump is likely to promote the chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party, Michael Whatley, as her replacement, according to several people familiar with the discussions. So we're going to put a pin in this and see if something actually comes out of this. But yeah, they're the only people who have anything on that recently. Well, that'll make things interesting. Nevertheless, the fact that she sucked at her job. All right. Speaking of the former president, and of course it's on Newsmax because everybody else will cut and selectively edit him. Newsmax may be biased and partisan, but they'll at least put the full clip out. President Trump slams the disgraceful Senate border bill. This is a Democrat trap. It's a trap for Republicans. It's one of the dumbest bills I've ever seen.
Well, it's hard to believe because I think it probably would mean the end of their career. This is a Democrat trap. It's a trap for Republicans that would be so stupid, so foolish to sign a bill like this. This bill can't be signed. And it's not only that, it's massive amounts of money going out of town, as we say, going out of town. Billions and billions and billions of dollars. And it's so bad on the border. I've never seen anything like it. Actually, it's one of the worst one of the dumbest bills I've ever seen. I think it's hard to believe because I think it probably would mean the end of their career.
I think he just says billions that way so people pay attention to the amount up there. Billions and billions and billions. The chuckle that I got while we were watching that video came when I looked over to my left and I looked in the live chat and saw the Mogwai says, "The bill is so full of pork, a Muppet frog is fucking it." Thank you, the Mogwai. I'm not going to read this one, but we'll just headline this one over because it's Scary Trump. Trump House Republicans plot to kill the border deal. It's because it fucking sucks. And MSDNC also has to grace us with their opinion of why Republicans want to kill the new immigration bill. Well, because it legalizes 1.8 million border crossers who do so without going through the port of entry, and it gives billions of dollars to the Ukraine and Israel that we cannot afford. But they're coming out saying, it's because they're being led by Donald Trump and he's calling it a dangerous overreach. Fucking spare me. Mike Johnson says it's worse than we expected. We heard about that earlier. And they even want to talk about scary, scary, evil Elon Musk. Forbes reporting Musk echoes right-wing claims on immigration as bipartisan Senate bill finally released. What to know? This ought to be interesting. Elon Musk spent the weekend on X railing against the bipartisan immigration bill, the Biden admin's border policy, and voicing support for the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas, which Republicans, as I said at the top of the show, fucked up, while echoing misleading claims from former President Trump and right-wing activists. On Friday, Musk claimed in a post on X that Biden was attempting to establish a one-party state, citing an Associated Press article from early in Biden's presidency about the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021, which ultimately did not pass the Senate. This explains why there's so few deportations, as every deportation is a lost vote. Early Monday, Musk criticized the newly released Senate immigration bill, claiming the goal of the spending bill was enabling illegals to vote, while quoting a post from venture capitalist David Sachs that claimed the bill would provide mass amnesty, which, thankfully, that one does not appear to be in there. The text of the new bill does not offer pathways to citizenship and does not mention voting at all. Well, of course it doesn't, because if they have citizenship, then they can demand a living wage. But that doesn't mean that they're not trying to import voters, because when these people grow up and they have kids, they come back out and tell the kids who will be U.S. citizens and able to vote, hey, the Democrats are the only ones who cared about us. Are the reasons we're not in Mexico. See? And go vote for Democrat. Don't even think about it, huh? So I would say that it is importing voters, just not in the way that Musk and the far right are trying to frame it as. There's a little bit of tact to the procedure. Musk also claimed that he was pro-increasing legal immigration significantly, which, I mean, he'd be a hypocrite if he wasn't, because he is himself a legal immigrant, claiming the existing system allows for a massive number of unvetted people flooding into America. But Elon man bad. Speaking of Mayorkas, let's talk just a bit about that one here. The political palm with the original announcement, and it appears that it changed by one vote after this. Political palm saying Republicans can't do anything right. Impeaching Homeland Security Secretary. Articles 1 and 2, refusal to comply with the law and breach of public trust. Republicans, 215 yay, 3 nay. Democrats, 212 nay, bringing the total to 215. But it appears at least one person changed from yay to nay because it failed. 214 to 216. Axios reporting Mayorkas impeachment fails in stunning loss for House Republicans, from Andrew Solander. The House on Tuesday failed to impeach Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas over his handling of an influx of migrants across the U.S.-Mexico border. It's a stunning loss for House Republican leadership after some of their members broke away and voted against the impeachment. The last cabinet secretary to be impeached was War Secretary William Belknap in 1876. The final tally was 214 to 216 against, with House Majority Leader Steve Scalise absent as he recovered from cancer treatment. Ken Buck, Mike Gallagher, and Tom McClintock had joined all Democrats in voting against the impeachment. I don't know what district Mike Gallagher is, but now I kind of want to know. With the vote threatening to end in a tie, the fourth Republican flipped to no, allowing leadership to call for another vote in the future. So they can do this over again, but I mean, it's going to be razor thin no matter what. Failed impeachment. Angry Marjorie Taylor Greene sounds. Thank you, the Mogwai. The 20-page measure accused Mayorkas of pursuing far more lenient policies around the detention and release of migrants than prescribed by federal law and court rulings, and blames him for a surge in border crossings during the Biden admin. Now, do they have the standing to do so? Absolutely. But one thing to keep in mind with this, number one, this can be brought back down to the floor for a vote again. Steve Scalise flipping his vote made that possible. If it had ended in a tie, it would not be able to be brought back down for a redebate and revote. But regardless, it's not going anywhere in the Senate, and everybody fucking knows that. I swear everybody knows that. It was symbolic, and we all knew it was symbolic. Alright. Now we've talked about the aid in the Israel aid bill. In the immigration bill. Let's talk about a clean, unoffset Israel aid bill, which I also do not support at this point. Vance and Hearn call for a clean, unoffset Israel aid bill from Nick Robertson. J.D. Vance and Kevin Hearn urged Speaker Mike Johnson on Wednesday to move forward on a bill that provides aid for Israel without offsetting funding elsewhere. Vermont's Senate leadership has attempted to trade Ukraine aid bill for a bill that would secure the American border. The lawmakers said in a statement, if news reports are in any way accurate, that border negotiation is a complete policy failure. It's time to address the issues that unite Republicans, not divide them. Israel! I've been sounding that alarm since October 7th. The calls come as a tenuous Senate negotiation over a border security bill, which is part of a larger spending supplemental that also includes aid for Ukraine and Israel, has come under increased GOP scrutiny, throwing the future of the entire package into doubt. Vance and Hearn's proposal appears to abandon the remaining portions of the foreign aid package promised in exchange for the border security bill. That package includes aid for Ukraine, Taiwan, and other foreign policy priorities of the Biden admin. You know what the worst part is? If the J.D. Vance bill came through, it would probably pass. And people wonder why their taxes are going up this year. I'm a little afraid to do mine, I'm not going to lie. I know I have to, but I'm a little afraid. And it appears that it's been announced. Thomas Massie, the Speaker, just announced that next week the House will vote on a clean bill to send Israel $14.3 billion. Israel has a lower debt-to-GDP ratio than the U.S. The spending package has no offsets, so it will increase our debt by $14.3 billion plus interest. I'm a no. Thank you, Thomas Massie. You've cucked on other things with the debt, but you've stayed constant with this. But like I said, this would probably still pass. Let's talk about Alvin Bragg. Wow, that 2 hours got ate up pretty quick. Proud Elephant. X is out. Happening now. Disgraced DA Alvin Bragg ignores questions about why he made the decision to release illegal aliens who attacked NYPD cops.
Why were they released? Why were those first migrants released?
Hey, Brad, can you respond to those who say that this looks like a kangaroo court?
Just give us one statement, one comment.
Mr. Bragg, do you regret it? Do you regret letting these migrants free, sir? Can you give us one comment, sir? Why? Sir, you're on behalf of the people. Can you just comment on the situation?
No, he's not going to comment. What are you, nuts? But he did eventually comment off of this. NBC4 out of New York says DA Bragg addresses why no bail was sought for suspects in NYPD Times Square attack. Let's see what he has to say, but it's mostly political. Jonathan Dienst, Melissa Russo, and NBC New York staff reporting. Nearly a week after 2 NYPD officers were injured by a group of attackers in Times Square, the Manhattan DA initially dodged questions as to why his office did not seek bail for several of the suspects involved, some of whom have since fled the state, sources previously said. Huh, imagine that! DA Bragg declined early Friday to answer questions from NBC News, New York, regarding the case and why several migrants accused of assaulting police were released without bond. He did not respond when asked if he thought not requesting bail was a mistake, instead walking past reporters without saying much. Bragg only offered the answer, "Will speak in court." The DA was attending a law enforcement conference, which reporters were invited to by Kathy Hochul. She made it clear that she disagrees with the decision to let the suspects go without bail and has called for the attackers to be deported. Hochul said the problem was not about weak bail laws, but rather the failure to use the laws in place. "All I know is an assault on a police officer means you should be sitting in jail," said Hochul. Hours after, Bragg convened an early evening press conference to try to clarify his position, insisting he would not tolerate attacks on police following days of criticism and silence from his office. "We do not tolerate or accept assaults on police officers. I watched the tape this week, despicable behavior, and it sickened me and outraged me." The embattled DA said his office was looking to new video to identify what role each individual may have played in the group assault. Well, what the fuck are you going to do? Because they already took off. They're out of state lines. Exactly what do you plan to do at this point? You caught them. You released them. It was mostly political in nature. He also said his office has received more information than it did after Saturday, and he expects to get further information in the next few days. What remains unclear is if Bragg has any hesitation or concerns about whether they have arrested or charged the right suspects, even if they were not held on bail. So, Hochul is pissed. I'm pretty sure that right now the only thing that is keeping Alvin Bragg in a job is the fact that he's going after Orange Man, and that case is even tenuous right now. I'm pretty sure if that case wasn't going on, he'd have been shit canned over this one. Alright. A little bit of news that didn't get covered anywhere because, well, we all knew it was going to happen. South Carolina's primary for the Democrats was held. What day was that held even? They didn't cover it they covered it so little. I had no idea when it was even held. Talk about it in another article here, but Joe Biden, not surprisingly, won 96.2% of voters, Democrat voters in South Carolina. But the weird thing about that too is that only about 130,000 people came out to vote in all of South Carolina. And, you know, your paid shills are coming out here celebrating this like this was a big victory. I'm telling you right off the bat, just like in 2020, a lot of these people are either planning on going in and voting Nikki Haley, so they stayed out of the Democrat primary, and I know they do this because it's what I did with Bernie Sanders in 2020 with Donald Trump, or they just don't care. Joe Biden is going to be the Democrat nominee. That was a foregone conclusion the day that he put his hand on the Bible on January 20th, 2021 and said, I swear to uphold the thing. So help me. That guy up there that I'm going to meet probably pretty soon. It was a foregone conclusion at that point. Now, whether or not he steps aside at the nomination conference and gives his delegates to his handpicked successor, which is the kind of thing the Democrat Party would do, by the way, or not, that remains yet to be seen. But there's, like, he has to project an air of strength going into this thing, because he's got 4 major wars that are threatening to go right now. And for him to step aside would be a message to our enemies of, hey, come on in. Let's have some fun. The Mogwai says the evangelical vote is a yes. Dog the Bounty Hunter, we need you. Saturday was the primary? I don't know. We'll read just briefly off of this one. Biden nets landslide victory in South Carolina. Democratic primary over 95% of the votes. Biden won a landslide victory in South Carolina's Democrat primary on Saturday, where voters sent a clear message they're ready for Biden to pivot to the November election. The other 2 Democrats on the ballot, Dean Phillips and self-help author Crystal Grandma, each won around 2% of the votes. So that was, yes, it was Saturday then. The win injects fresh momentum into Biden's re-election campaign, and it offers compelling rebuttal to the narrative that Democrat voters are ambivalent or worse about their party's standard bearer. How many people voted in the 2020 Democrat primary? This is a pretty long question, and I don't know if Google... let's use the one that's good enough for term papers, Wikipedia. Yeah, they want to go take this as a victory? Holy shit. So 262,000 plus 106,000, and then enough to make up about 1,000 there is 269,000 plus 369,000 plus 61,000 for Tom Steyer is 430,000 people voted in the Democrat primary in 2020. Oh, more than that, because Mayor Pete and Chief Spreading Bull were both in there too. That's another 82,000 votes. 500,000 people voted in the Democratic primary in South Carolina in 2020. 130,000 people voted in the Democrat primary in 2020 or in 2024. You guys really want to call this a victory? Nobody came out to vote. Holy fuck. The propaganda is strong with this one. There's no way somebody's looking at these numbers and saying, yeah, we did amazingly out here. When over 500,000 people voted. The total number of people who voted for all candidates in the 2024 race just barely peaks over what Bernie Sanders got as a second place runner-up. And doesn't even come close to what Biden got. Holy shit. And these people are taking a victory lap. Like the fucking morons that they are. Good God. I'm saving that. We're putting that in the Discord. Biden gets the South Carolina victory that he wanted. Dude, nobody came out. If you have this kind of turnout in general election time, you're fucked. Donald Trump might win the popular vote. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's possible. Biden tears up, asking for a truce with Republicans. We must not be enemies, man. Come on. Let's listen.
At a moment of deep division in our nation, President Lincoln said, "We are not enemies." He said, "We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies," he went on to say. I've long believed we have to look at each other, even in our most challenging times, not as enemies, but as fellow Americans. Scripture tells us the fruit of the Spirit is...
I would not be quoting Scripture. With as many babies as you've greenlit to be killed, I would not be quoting Scripture if I was you.
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness. I believe that's our collective calling today. At a moment of deep division in our nation, President Lincoln...
Well, see, the problem that I have with that is every chance that you have, you get up on the stage and you say, extreme MAGA Republicans are the source of all your problems. And that's what we have to defeat in 2020. What the fuck year is it, man? That's sick fuck, I'm telling you. Extreme! Extreme! Ah! So I hate to tell you this, but I don't want to hear your calls for unity. And if any of the DeSantis people want to come back and call me on that, I will remind you that I was calling for you guys to unify long before DeSantis was voted out in Iowa. I came out and said, I don't care to vote for either one of your candidates, but you fuckers have to come together and figure out how to get along. Or we're going to spend 4 more years under this guy. You figure out amongst yourselves who's going to be the nominee. But get along, or we're going to spend 4 more years hearing, come on, man. $80 million votes, folks. John Fetterman getting into the news. We're just going to power through. We're close enough to the end, and I've got a short enough things I like and things that I hate that we'll power through. We won't do a Thursday show. I'll do something for you guys on Thursday. I don't know what it'll be, but we'll do something. Fetterman. He lies and says she's in love with him. Can't find a Fetterman. Fetterman warns young voters to support Biden even if they don't like him. Fuck around and find out. Remember when I said that I didn't trust this guy? I told you, he can say all the base stuff in the world. And deep down, he's still a socialist, he's still a gun grabber. Same with these idiots that think they're going to go out and vote for RFK because they can't put their name behind Trump. I can't put my name behind Trump either, but I sure as fuck will not vote for openly socialist, gun-grabbing RFK. You'd have to kill me first. Seriously, if I got held hostage with my hand behind my back, drugged to the ballot box, with a pen force in my hand and said, sign your name to this and vote for RFK, or I'll shoot you in the back of that, I'll say, put me out of my misery. No way would I ever vote for RFK. As President Biden faces a threat of rebellion within his own party for his support of Israel, John Fetterman is daring voters to risk letting another candidate win, according to a column published on Sunday. Fetterman compared Democrats' lackluster support for Hillary Clinton in 2016 to the current presidential election. Fetterman, who's delighted in trolling left-wing critics by resolutely standing with Israel since October 7th, told me young voters should consider the implications of enabling a candidate who would likely give Netanyahu even more of a free hand. Politico columnist Jonathan Martin wrote on Sunday. I said the same thing in 2016 to voters. Hey, you know what? You don't like Clinton. You know what? Fuck around and find out what Trump is going to be about. And hey, guess what? How'd you like it? Fetterman is saying the quiet part out loud, and this might be a doom sentence to the Democrat Party. I think somebody on the Democrat side needs to go back and rein him in because they're not close enough to the general election yet for Fetterman to come back out and say, hey, fall in line. We don't care what you think. We don't care what nominee you want. Fall in line and vote for us, or else. You are too deep into the primary season to get away with that shit right now. More Biden news. Biden to head East Palestine 1 year after train derailment after facing intense pressure to visit. Are his aides actually actively trying to sabotage him at this point? Now, if this was... when did this happen? I thought I was still living in my old apartment at the time, but I might have been here. The president's been under pressure to visit the area since the derailment on February 3rd, 2023. I thought it was earlier than that. I did. No, I was living here when it happened. I really thought it was earlier than that. The White House has said that Biden would visit the area, but that didn't happen last year. In contrast, days after the incident, former President Trump visited East Palestine and increasingly read Ohio and criticized Biden's absence. Look, I don't give advice to people that I hate very often, but in Biden's case, I'm going to tell you right off the bat. The time to go was March of last year. Was the absolute latest you should consider going to East Palestine. Yes, you should have done it before. You should have done it while the cars were still on the ground. I don't know if there's going to be a heckler out there, somebody yelling the N-word while he's on camera, or what it is that his aides have planned out there for this, but you look weak when you do this right now, a year later. You look feckless, and you look like you don't care. Hey, look at me, man. Vote for me. I hope you're all doing well right now, man. Come on. Now, if this was in California, you would have some bearings to stand on for this. You are deep in rural Trump country right now doing this. Which again tells me that either somebody's going to try to do something violent in protest, honk honk, FBI plant, or somebody's going to yell from the crowd the N-word and get it caught on camera. Because unless you are actively trying to stage an op, there is no way that this helps you electorally anywhere, any way, in a race where you're already deeply underwater. And the last on the news side, before we go into things that I like and things that I hate, is just a stupid story. CBS News reporting, Mayor Brandon Johnson casts tie-breaking vote as Chicago City Council calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. Roll that over in your head right now, what I just said. Brandon Johnson wants a ceasefire in Gaza. They can't even call for a ceasefire in their own city. Let that sink in. Brandon Johnson, you need to be thinking less about what's going on the national stage and what resolutions you're doing for that, and actually think about what's happening out there. Oh, John joined for. Oh, John is there. Iyama Fago joined over on the Instagram side. Thank you for your support. See, Mr. Zed talked. It's the algorithm. Mr. Zed talked a bunch on the Instagram feed earlier on, and now I'm getting pushed to the front page. Algorithms. Give John a little wave over there. Yeah. Mayor Johnson calls for a ceasefire in Gaza when they can't call for a ceasefire in their own city. What the hell? All right. That's it for the news. Let's do some things that I like and some things that I hate. But first, the rules of acquisition. So every week on Contemporary Night, we sit down and we look over one of the rules of acquisition. We're actually just about through the list, and it's been suggested that I start over because I started this on the morning show, and the audience is very different on the night show than it does in the morning show, but I will think about that. But we are getting close to the end, and we're getting close to some of these, by the way, that I think were put in there because Roddenberry was a raging communist and he was trying to make the capitalists look bad. And, some of these we actually could use in real life. This one, of course, is another one that we can't, because I do advise everybody to still have a conscience. Last week we read the 257th rule of acquisition: when the messenger comes to appropriate your profits, kill the messenger. The 261st rule of acquisition, the rule of the Ferengi religion of ultra-capitalism, states, a wealthy man can afford everything except a conscience. There's another one that comes from the DS9 reference book. And, well, when we look into this one here, I still advise everybody to have a conscience. You should still be seeking down profit to the best that you can. But you should have some ethics. You should be able to sleep at night and look yourself in the eyes when you look in the mirror. I understand that sometimes you gotta slip a little bit in there and let a little bit go and have just a little bit slip off to the side, but I cannot advise you not to have a conscience. Definitely cannot advise that, but there you go, your 261st first rule of acquisition. Let's do a couple things I like and a couple things that I hate. Things that I like, number 1. The celebrity endorsements are starting to come in. People are starting to look and realize that no matter how much the machine is trying to tell you that you have to support Joe Biden no matter what if you're a celebrity, people are starting to break free, and I look very forward to people trying to use the House N-word against rapper 50 Cent. George, Behizzy tweets, X is out. Breaking legendary rapper 50 Cent, who got shot 9 times, by the way. Response to New York City handing $53 million in prepaid credit cards to illegals. I'm stuck. Maybe Trump's the answer. The Trump 24 train will be the biggest in world history. Our movement has grown beyond political parties. And, I mean, people are looking at it right now. They go to the grocery store. They buy the gas. They see the stories of the open border. And the taxpayer funding going out to the people who jumped the border as illegal immigrants. And people, I think, are starting to get fed up with it. Even the celebrities who are told, send the message that we tell you to, or we will make life very difficult for you. I mean, what does 50 have to lose? He's made his millions. He has. And I think he is in a position where he can be candid. And he's probably looking at this and seeing people downloaded a lot more of his songs when they had more disposable income in the 4 Trump years right now. But also, again, seeing where, I mean, he's a New Yorker. We're seeing where New York is being overrun by the border crisis. I can see where he's coming from this, but I like to see where people are coming out here. I fiscally am opposed to Donald Trump because I saw where he spent into oblivion. But I'm going to tell you right now, anything's better than Biden. That's why I told all these DeSantis and Trump people to get along with each other. Come together, knock Nikki Haley out because she sucks. War pig that she is. And I don't care if you pick the Florida man or if you pick the New York man. Just get along and pick. Because we can't afford 4 more years of this. Other things that I like. Words that I never thought that I would read on the internet, anywhere. And I'm going to take them from the Daily Wire because why the fuck not? Ben Shapiro rap lands in top 20 spot on Billboard Hot 100 chart. Full disclosure, I have not listened to this song. I can't. What universe is this? Daily Wire editor emeritus Ben Shapiro has scored the first song in the Billboard Hot 100 charts for Facts with rapper Tom MacDonald. The host of the Ben Shapiro Show and MacDonald's rap collaboration hit the 16th spot in Billboard's chart, a first for Shapiro. The Canadian rapper MacDonald has now made the Billboard Hot 100 charts 4 times. But Facts marks his first top 40 hit, which, by the way, and I know that they're going to carpet bomb it on the radio, but if he's making it into the top 40, he's supposed to be in the radio rotation. Will he be? Most likely not. But he's supposed to be, because that's supposed to be a collection of the top 40. Shapiro's number 16 spot is higher than the Billboard's Hot 100 debuts of music stars, including Taylor Swift, who peaked at number 40 with her debut song Tim McGraw in 06, and Megan Thee Stallion, whose single Big Ol' Freak topped out on the number 65 in 2019. Shapiro and McDonald work together on the track that takes a swipe at the insanity of things in our culture like gender identity and defunding the police. The music video Facts debuted on January 26th, and within a very short amount of time, the song landed in the #1 spot on the hip-hop rap chart and is sort of the top of the US iTunes chart. Is he gonna do Gangster's Paradise here? Facts by I Am Tom McDonald is now officially dropped from the top spot on iTunes after 10 days of pure magic. Rap Hanukkah is over. And so with tears in my eyes, I have another announcement to make. To all the little homies who've been lifting me up since I began this journey. It was an inspiring moment, gang. A musical supernova. But now the time has come for me to walk away from my art. And so today, I announced that I'm retiring from rap to spend more time with my family. It's been real, dog. And never forget, the music never dies, so long as the beat is in your heart. Gang. R.I.P. Dr. Dreidel, 2024 to 2024. I don't know if I can cringe any harder. I don't know what universe this is. I don't... What is happening in this world? This is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But I can't wrap my head around it. And one more that I like before we do a few things that I hate. Mike Collins, I don't like the fact that he got locked out, but I like the fact that he took the stand. And of course, I like the terminology that he used. Kingsley Wilson says Rep. Mike Collins has been locked out of his account for this tweet. Which, from what I understand, because that's the official account, I thought that it was against the Twitter rules for the official accounts to be locked out, but apparently that's not the case. Rep. Anthony Despacito says, "We feel the same way about you. Holler at the cartels and have them escort you back." Showing a picture of presumably an illegal migrant giving the finger out to authorities. And Collins says, "Or we could buy him a ticket on the Pinochet Air for a free helicopter ride back." Based? Alright, let's do a couple things that I hate. Actually, I got a lot of things that I hate, but a few of them, like the other ones, can be condensed down a little bit. We've got video here on a verdict reached first. A Michigan jury has found Jennifer Crumbley, the mother of the Oxford high school shooter, guilty on all 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Let's watch the video and then we'll look a little bit into the CNN article that accompanies this.
Count 1 of involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count 2 of involuntary manslaughter in regards to Tate Muir, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count 3, as to involuntary manslaughter regarding Hannah St. Juliana, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. And in count 4 of involuntary manslaughter against Justin Schilling, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Thank you for allowing me to. Count 1 of involuntary manslaughter.
So, if you guys remember the case, this is the kid that was in Michigan that went home, got the handgun, with seemingly encouragement from the parent. That's why they're doing the involuntary manslaughter, and shot up his school in Michigan. Registered far leftist too, by the way. 15-year-old kid. And while I think that there should be charges brought out because the parents did make give access to this and did appear to be encouraging off this, involuntary manslaughter is not the way to go about this. And once again, I look at this and I see a very, very dangerous precedent. Now, accessory? Yes, absolutely. Negligence? 100%. But see, those are not as showy and don't carry the big prison terms as involuntary manslaughter. And when I look at something like this, I look at the opening to move down the list and go back and charge anybody else who was involved with this. With not just with this case, but other mass shootings that they try to cram down your throat. And charge anybody that they can find that they want to make a political example out of for manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter. I mean, where does it stop? The parents, obviously, when they try to force the safe storage laws. You can't have your gun in your nightstand to take care of a burglar because your kid might get into it. Locked at all times, and if the burglar comes in, you have to tell him, hey, hang on, I've got to be able to get my gun out. Give me 5 minutes to put the combination, to go downstairs to the basement and put the combination in. The gun shop owner, the manufacturer. I mean, they've already been trying to push both of those classes of people in when they try to do these mass shooting things. This, I think, is dangerous. Fully and honestly. That's why I didn't put this in the regular news and put this in things I hate instead. And I do see a lot of charges coming down for involuntary manslaughter now that they know that it's okay to do it. And if they get a friendly jury, can get away with it. I don't like any of this. I really don't. Eugene Vindman has decided that he is going to throw his hat in the race for Congress. His qualifications to make laws that will affect you as the American people directly is that he blew the whistle on the phone call for Trump. I am not kidding. According to his campaign video, that is the only qualification that he has to be in Congress right now. Eugene Vindman says, I served in the Army for 25 years. When I heard about how Donald Trump tried to extort President Zelensky, I blew the whistle, putting my career on the line in the process. Your career was never on the line. Now I'm running for Congress. Will you join me and answer the call?
It all began with a phone call. I never thought politics would be my future. My life, rooted in service. Soldier, paratrooper, JAG prosecutor, war crimes investigator. An oath sworn to the nation my father brought us to as kids, escaping Soviet tyrants in search of freedom and opportunity. But the world order is not permanent. Our democracy, fragile, unbroken, but not unblemished. And that dictators are not merely villains who sit overseas, but can be a consequence of our own failure to act.
I would like you to do us a favor.
As Donald Trump tried to extort President Zelensky into digging up dirt on his political opponent, my brother Alex listened on. Shaken, Alex came into my office. We reported the call together.
So that's 2 crimes. But we won't talk about that. And of course, this is selectively edited. By the way, I just looked into Vindman is running as a Democrat to replace Abigail Spanberger for Virginia's 7th, which is Fredericksburg out to Culpeper. And it's not quite into the DC area, not in Manassas, Alexandria area, but it's the next area down south, I think. No, they would be showing Richmond if Richmond was in there. So no, Richmond's not in there. But he is going to be another rich man north of Richmond. Definitely.
I'm running for Congress in Virginia's 7th district because the threat remains.
Donald Trump has won the Iowa caucus.
We're going to straighten out our elections.
Voter ID.
We have to get rid of mail-in ballots because once you have mail-in ballots, you have crooked elections.
Blowing the whistle once wasn't enough.
But you and your brother sort of made a commitment. You said something wrong has happened and you're going to fix it and you're going to do it. And it cost both of you a lot. And you had President Trump go.
What did it cost him? He got famous off of this and now he thinks he can run for Congress.
Going after you. And your solution is not to be vindictive, not to be vengeful. It's to get involved in politics.
I'm running for Congress to stop authoritarians and extremists I never thought politics would be in my future, but when I hear the call to serve, I answer.
You know, I am no friend of Abigail Spanberger, but what I'll tell you right off the bat is Abigail Spanberger is in there to make laws, to what she believes is going to help the people. You're running on the high because you think you can get into politics because you blew the whistle and everybody from MSDNC on up made you famous over it. And you think you can get that sweet, sweet congressional pension. I don't know that he can win either. That's one of the worst parts of it. Alright, a couple more here. There is a woke kindergarten class in California. Because Hayward, California, the district is dealing with low test scores, and their answer is to give lessons in wokeness. And the test scores have fallen much further, but some of the things that are in the program, this is the reason this falls on the things that I hate, because, hey, I'm sure that the local school board signed off on this. I wonder, if we challenge the legitimacy of the Supreme Court, how might we transfer power back to the people? This is something they're asking the kindergartners. If we abolish the police, what else could we do to keep people in the world safe? Well, I will keep myself safe. You guys can figure all the rest of it out on your own. Sorry. Not sorry. If we eradicate borders, how might we build our communities to include and support our neighbors from all over the world? I wonder if every military in the world was defunded and abolished, how could we use that money for care instead? You wouldn't have to worry about it because the third world would come around and enslave you. If the US defunded Israel, how could this money be used to rebuild Palestine? This is for kindergartners. And if we abolished money, how could people get the most important things that they needed? Well, the government would keep 95% of it for themselves, the people in power, and give out the breadcrumbs to the people just to make sure and promise them more breadcrumbs if they voted for the party, capital T, capital P. That's how. Isn't that wonderful? I am no fan of woke washing, but I gotta put this one out here. And I'm not gonna do the video on this one because it's a bit explicit. I mean, you can see it, but I'm not going to put the audio cues back with it. But we can't woke wash in the other direction either. End wokeness. Netflix made a new documentary about Alexander the Great. Within the first 8 minutes, they turned him gay. End wokeness. I agree with you on most of your points when you come up with this. No, Cleopatra wasn't black. No, Vikings weren't black. A Hans Christian Andersen character was very, very likely not to be black. But it's actually well documented that Alexander the Great was gayer than Christmas. Alexander the Great made Lindsey Graham look straight. There were different cultural norms around homosexuality in ancient Greece on top of that, but even beyond the cultural norms of Macedonia, Alexander the Great was gay for those standards. This is well known. We can't go back and try to impose Christian moralism on people who preceded Christianity any more than we can try to impose blackness on people in history who weren't black. Couple more here. These two follow on to the same very sort of be very afraid these relative cultural norms are trying to turn your kids straight and make them anti-democrat and everything else. Rolling Stone. 4chan chuds used AI to clothe her. She fought back. An adult content creator with a large following on the internet, Isla David, has dealt with trolls before. Usually her work combating online bad actors involves her trying to take down photos of herself that have been posted elsewhere without her permission, such as a photo for an ad for horny MILFs in her area that she's been trying to get removed for years. But she's also used to trolls editing her images without her consent, either subtracting clothes, editing my waist, or editing the size of my chest and hips. Just generally treating me like a human Play-Doh for them to mash around. On February 2nd, however, David found herself in a somewhat unusual position. A friend informed me that one of her photos, a sultry image of her sipping a bottle of Highland Park Scotch, while clad in a white button-down she'd posted on her subreddit, our whiskey porn, had been going viral on what she refers to as the scuzzier corners of the internet, such as 4chan. The image had been edited not to remove her clothes, but to add them. Which is based, by the way. The photo had been manipulated with AI, David says, to make her look like some strange parody of a woman. Her waist and thighs had been edited to look smaller, but her head had been edited to nearly twice its size. What's more, the person who edited it had clothed her in a demure white A-line dress and surrounded her with 3 adorable children, all the same approximate stature, wearing similarly beatific white garments. Far-right influencer Ian Miles Chung had tweeted it with the caption, when given pictures of thirst traps, AI imagines what could have been if they'd been raised by strong fathers. A post that had been racked up 7 million views. And Rolling Stone is trying to push this like this is a bad thing. Further on to the same line, the Daily Caller. Reading The Lord of the Rings in 1984 could lead to right-wing extremism, government report warns. Strong male figures, heroes journey to better themselves, and a criticism of the government. You know what this sounds a lot like? Censorship. Book banning. We might get to the point of burning books if we keep hearing this kind of rhetoric here. Author Douglas Murray published a scathing review of the British government's counterterrorism prevent program, which has apparently reported that authors like George Orwell, Tolkien, and C.S. Lewis can radicalize readers. In his column, Murray described how Britain's Prevent program was founded to support counterterrorism efforts, but it's gradually swayed into a focus on only extremists from Islam and far-right ideological mindsets. He evidenced this claim by citing Prevent was consulted by activist groups such as Hope, Not Hate, which he argues believes people who voted for Brexit and are against illegal immigrants are far-right. They're not, by the way. He further noted that Prevent's Research Information and Communications Unit has previously listed historical texts as red flags. Essentially, if someone's reading 1984 or works by Lewis, Tolkien, Aldous Huxley, or Joseph Conrad, they should be suspected of being far-right extremist terrorists. Murray's own book was on the list. And one of the reasons that I bring this up here is because, this is coming here at some point. I know we hear about the Don't Say Gay bill and this, that, and the next thing, and how the evil far right is trying to censor people by not allowing these books to be in school libraries. What they're doing in Europe right now is trying to take these books completely out of circulation because they're dangerous to the status quo. And if nothing else, trying to make people afraid to read them. So, on top of that, the Rolling Stone trying to say that a male fantasy, imagining a woman clothed and raising children, is a bad thing. This is the degeneracy that they're trying to push down into our system and cover up anything that will try to prevent it. Alright, 2 more. We haven't seen a funny libs of TikTok for a while, but another one of these are the people who are teaching your kids. This person is teaching 4-year-olds. She/he doesn't know if she is a boy or a girl.
Hi, so I have a small dilemma. I am starting a new job on Monday, and it's a teaching job, so the kids are going to call me either Mr. or Mrs. Jamie. It depends on what I want, but I, as a non-binary being, I don't know what to pick. I feel like Mrs. would be easier for the kids, but Mr. makes me feel better, but I also kind of want to try mix, but I don't know if the kids can do that. I don't... And then what do they do when they ask me if I'm a boy or a girl? I'm not! I don't know.
Explain that it's young kids, too.
It's young kids. My class is going to be 4-year-olds, so... I don't know. And then... I don't know if I want to go by Jamie or Jamie Ray, because Jamie Ray's the name that I go by now. I don't know. Any advice would be great for any non-binary teachers.
Your decision on your name should not be putting you through this much stress. Period. This shouldn't be this big of a problem. If you are going through this much issue on what to title yourself, you need to rethink the mindset that the non-binary agenda has pushed into your head. This should not be a major life-changing, anxiety-inducing situation. At however the hell old this thing is. And it appears to be married, too. Because it keeps bringing up Mrs. You know, I've worked with a service advisor who brought it up eloquently. The decision on how to evacuate your bladder should not be the most difficult decision you make in a day. Alright, and a couple headlines out of my home state. To round out the things that I hate for the night. I can't believe a decision on how to identify yourself is the hardest decision that thing made. What is wrong with this world? Wisconsin absentee ballot rules. Judge issues order on ruling. Scott Bauer reporting out of Fox 6. A Wisconsin judge on Tuesday ordered the State Elections Commission to implement his ruling, allowing election clerks to accept absentee ballots. The impartial witness addresses a decision that's expected to expand the number of ballots that will be counted in the battleground state. So, our state's going blue. Each of the last 2 elections in Wisconsin was decided by fewer than 23,000 votes. Not this time. Polls show another razor-tight race this year between Biden and Trump. Ever since Trump's defeat in Wisconsin, Republicans have been fighting in court to tighten the rules to limit how many absentee ballots can be accepted. But, see, they bought a Supreme Court majority, so now they don't have to worry about that. State law requires absentee ballots be submitted with a witness's signature and address on the outside of the envelope that contains the ballot. 3 separate lawsuits were filed related to those rules. Dane County Judge Ryan Nilsson earlier this month ruled in 2 cases brought by liberals that a ballot can still be accepted even a witness address omits municipalities and zip codes, or simply say same or ditto if the witness lives with the voter. The Republican legislature fought to have this case dismissed. Well, what I'm going to tell you is you can go back and try to appeal this now, but the progressive groups in Wisconsin have bought a Supreme Court majority. So it's not going to go anywhere. And if that didn't cement it in your mind enough, the Wisconsin Supreme Court has agreed to hear the governor's lawsuit against the GOP-controlled legislature. We can't have gridlock in this state because that would be bad. We can't get the progressive agenda done if we have gridlock. The Supreme Court on Friday agreed to hear Tony Evers' lawsuit against the Republican-controlled legislature, arguing it's obstructing basic government functions. He can't win. And he can't get anything done So instead of trying to negotiate, he's just going to sue them and force them to go along with his whim. The court's liberal majority agreed to hear the case, with the 3 conservative justices dissenting. It set oral arguments on April 17th. The court only agreed to immediately hear one of the 3 issues Evers brought forward in the complaint. The issue relates to the legislature's Republican-controlled budget committee blocking the funding for state conservative programs. Or conservation programs, they're not conservative. Evers had also challenged a committee made up of legislative leaders not approving pay raises for UW employees, but after the lawsuit was filed, the panel did approve the raises. Evers had also challenged the legislative committee blocking updates to the state's commercial building standards and ethics standards for licensed professionals, making it, of course, harder for people to go to work. Liberal Justices Protasewicz, Dalit, Karofsky, and Walsh Bradley agreed to take the case. Conservative Chief Justice Annette Ziegler and Justices Hagedorn, Rebecca Bradley dissented. Rebecca Bradley in her dissent accused the majority of needlessly engulfing this court in morass of politics. Well, get used to that, because until the next term, the next 2 terms, it's going to keep going this way. By accepting only one of the issues raised by the governor and holding the other 2 issues in abeyance, the majority refashions the court as the governor's avenue for imposing policy changes without the consent of the governed. Yeah, because our representation doesn't represent us anymore. When the majority's political allies say jump, the new majority responds, how high? And that's what you get when you buy a Supreme Court. And Karofsky and Protasewicz already made guarantees on how they were going to rule in every case that came forward. That's part of what got them in there. You know, that thing that the Trump justices refused to do, even though they're accused of not doing that? It's all a mess right now, you guys. As I always say, drop of ice, lose 10 pounds if you've got it to lose, pick up a new skill, and get 2 side hustles, because the next 4 years are going to be hell, and nobody's coming to save you. And that's what I have to say about that. This is a really black-pilling show. It was. But, I mean, I accepted a long time ago that there's nobody in the government who's going to come to save you. That's why I started my side hustle. That's why on Thursday we're probably going to get some wine updates. My sanitizer's coming tomorrow, but I know we're going to play Final Fantasy X tomorrow. So I think I'm going to clean everything up and probably start a batch on Thursday night. I'm kind of excited for that, actually. I think it's going to be fun. I really do. But I think we're also going to take off here. So let's throw some outro music up and let's head out. The wonderful and aforementioned Stephen Ignoramus providing the outro music, of course. If you guys haven't gone, check them out on YouTube and over on DLive, Rumble, BitChute, places like that. You absolutely have to. He's been so kind to me since he started off, since we all started this journey off, so go check them out. But thanks everybody who came by and hung out and watched and complained about the news with me. It's been a fun time. And everybody on the replays, by the way, as well. I will get these out yet here tonight, so look forward to that. Look forward to the audio platform and everything else. We will be back here tomorrow for Final Fantasy X. Probably close to the end of the game. I know I've been saying that for quite a while, but I know, like, Zanarkand Ruins is where the final battle takes place, so I know we're getting there. Thursday we'll probably either do some X updates, some Discord updates, or maybe even a short video talking about the winemaking. That's going to be coming up. I'm very excited for that. My first batch is going to go in this week. It's going to be fantastic. But with that, we're going to head out of here for the night. We'll be back here on Tuesday for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. We'll see the results from the non-existent Republican primary in Nevada. We will see if Nikki Haley loses to none of the above. That'll be hilarious. And the caucus as well. We'll do those together on Tuesday night. We'll see what's happening with that. And we'll see what else happens in the next 7 days. Take care. Have a fantastic night. Thanks for watching. Thanks for checking out the replay. Thanks for checking out the audio platform and everywhere else. We will see you next time. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar. And this is Contemporary. Take care.